This is my favorite bus stop in London. It's on Tottenham Court Road, across from the Primark, next to a McDonald's. I'm standing here on a Tuesday afternoon in May. The block is alive. Cabs, buses, people moving in and out of shops. The whole street is loud with itself. But this isn't the version of the bus stop I know best. The version I know best is at 3 in the morning. The Primark is closed. The shops are shuttered. The crowd is thinned out, the stragglers waiting for the night bus home. You can see the stark contrast between 6 in the evening on Tottenham Court Road and 3 a.m. at this same corner. Right now, the city looks alive and flowing. At 3 a.m., this block is dead. Coming to Tottenham Court Road station for the first time really felt like I finally arrived in the city the rest of the world thinks of when they think of London. The bright lights, the crowds, the spectacles. I loved it. This podcast is about that block. The few streets between Tottenham Court Road Station and Leicester Square, between the Palace Theatre and Chinatown, between the Hippodrome and the bus stop where I'm now standing. I've walked it more times in 4 months than I've walked at any other parts of the city. I've walked at 3 p.m. on Tuesdays and 3 a.m. on Saturdays. I've walked it sober. The first thing you see when you come off the Central Line at Tottenham Court Road is a screen the size of a building. It cycles color, sounds, and images. Tourists stop underneath it, filming it on their phones. The wind beats down on the corridor, and people press in for shelter just as much as for spectacle. There's usually a man with a pull-up bar, offering 100 pounds to anyone who could hang for 100 seconds. There's always a perfume seller. There's always somebody pitching something. Rebecca Solnit, in her essay on the solitary walker in the city, writes about the figure of the flaneur, the urban stroller who drifts through the crowd observing without being observed, finding a kind of freedom in being anonymous in public. The flaneur was the 19th century city's privileged reader. He is not looked at. What Solnit and the writers who came after her noticed is that the flaneur was always a fantasy. The freedom to walk a city anonymously was never evenly distributed. Elizabeth Wilson, writing about the female flaneur, points out that women in the 19th century couldn't drift unobserved the way men could. Their walking was always being read, always being categorized. The flaneur's anonymity was the privilege of being the right kind of body in the right kind of street. I think about this every time I come about this station, because on this block, nobody walks anonymously. The screen is wide. A 2-minute walk south brings me to the Palace Theatre. Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. I've walked past this sign maybe 25 times since January. I guarantee you that not many people taking pictures here will ever actually step foot inside the building. And I haven't either. I've always taken a picture, but I've never stepped inside. The Palace Theatre opened in 1891 as the Royal English Opera House. Within a year, it had failed as an opera house and was rebranded as a music hall. By the 1920s, it was a venue for musical comedy. It's been a cinema, the stage for The Sound of Music, and since 2016, the home of The Cursed Child. The same building has been selling spectacle to walking audiences for 135 years. The shows change, the function doesn't. This whole stretch of streets, Theatreland, consolidated its identity as London's commercial entertainment district in the late 19th century, when the West End was being deliberately built up as a zone of respectable middle-class leisure. Judith Walkowitz, in The City of Dreadful Delight, writes about how the Victorian West End was constructed as a space of spectacle and consumption, a stage for looking and for being looked at, in carefully managed ways. The performance scholar Susan Bennett describes the contemporary city as a tourist stage, a place where neighborhoods get converted into performances for audiences who won't stay for the curtain. The Cursed Child sign is the show. The play is almost besides the point. Across the road from the theater is the Montague Pike, one of the largest Wetherspoons in England. It's named after a cinema pioneer who ran a chain of picture houses in this area in the early 1900s. The building was one of his cinemas before it became a pub it is now. Inside that pub, I could draw you a map. The theater I've only ever photographed, that asymmetry, the building 2 minutes further down is the Hippodrome Casino. It opened in 1900 as a circus and variety theater. The original building had a water tank under the stage for aquatic spectacles. It then became a music hall, then a cabaret restaurant called the Talk of the Town in the 1950s, where Judy Garland and Frank Sinatra performed. It became a nightclub in the 80s, and a casino in 2012. The same building has been selling spectacle to walk-in audiences for 125 years. Different shows, same function. The Hippodrome was the first place I came to in central London that felt like home. In February, it was the only place I could find in London that would broadcast the Super Bowl. It was a strange thing, finding America inside a casino on Cranbourne Street. But it tracks with what Sam Selvin writes about in The Lonely Londoners. The way migrants to the city find pieces of home tucked into rooms that nobody officially planned for them. Selvin's London in 1956 is opaque and cold. navigated from the ground up by the people the city was never built to accommodate. Mine is friendlier than his. It's not the 50s, but the structure is the same. You come looking for the version of the city you imagined. You find a piece of it stuck in a basement. Leicester Square. From where I'm standing, I can see a Jollibee, a Burger King, a Slim's Chickens, a Pizza Hut, a Lego store, and an M&M Superstore with a queue outside it like it's the Willy Wonka chocolate factory. The first thing I think of when I'm here is transactions. Everything seems transactional. Everything is geared towards getting tourists to put their hard-earned money into fueling the London economy. Leicester Square has been like this longer than people remember. It started in the 1670s as Leicester Fields, the grounds attached to a private aristocratic house. By the 18th century, it became a public square. By the mid-19th century, it had become a Victorian entertainment district. The Empire and the Alhambra, two of the biggest variety theaters in London, opened on the square in 1854 and 1888. By the late 1800s, the square was disreputable enough that respectable people worried about it. In the 20th century, the variety theaters became cinemas. Now the cinemas share the square with chain restaurants and tourist attractions. The specific shows have changed. The square has been selling itself to walkers for nearly 200 years. Walkowitz's argument about the Victoria West End was that it was simultaneously respectable and dangerous. A place of leisure that was also a place where various kinds of hustle and predation were quietly built into the floor plan. That description still fits. The American chains are pitched at homes. Across the block now is Chinatown. This Chinatown isn't the original. London's Chinese community was based for most of the 19th and earliest 20th centuries in Limehouse in the East End, closer to the docks where Chinese sailors first sailed in the 1880s. That Limehouse Chinatown was the one Sax Rohmer wrote his Fu Manchu novels about, the racist yellow peril fiction that shaped a whole generation's image of Chinese Londoners. Limehouse was heavily bombed in the Blitz. The community that rebuilt itself in Gerrard Street in the late 1950s and 60s was following the post-war boom in Chinese restaurants serving British soldiers who'd come back from Hong Kong. The official designation, the gates, the lanterns, the bilingual street signs, those came later, in the 80s, as a deliberate placemaking project by Westminster Council. So the Chinatown on this block was made twice. Once by a community claiming new ground after losing old ground, once by a council branding that ground for visitors. Claire Alexander, writing about Brick Lane, describes the same Belleville movement, community, claimed space that gets repackaged into a tourist product. Bennett's tourist stage again, but with a longer history and more people inside it. I come here for Joy Bao. I love the bao. I love the boba. I love the noodles. I come because the food is genuinely good. I'm a tourist of this neighborhood and I know it, but I'm a regular tourist. Now I walk back to where I started. Past the cursed child one more time, past the Weatherspoons, past the big screen in the perfume cellar, back to my favorite bus stop next to the trusty McDonald's. It's still daylight, the Primark is still open, but I know what this corner sounds like at 3 a.m. And standing here in the afternoon, I can hear that version underneath this one. The straggler's waiting, the McDonald's the only thing still bright. The N25, eastbound, 40 minutes to the Mile End, getting ready to go to Ilford, Hainault Street. Back to the part of London this West End commercial machine doesn't reach.